Welcome back to 602 Rose Show, covering Fantasy Bachelor in Paradise for the Rose League. Available on the App Store, iPhone, Android. The single best way to play week to week Fantasy Bachelor, Bachelorette, and BIP. Weird episode last night, Monday night. We're filming this pretty early, so if there's new news that comes out between the time you see this video and the time the show airs at 7 o'clock Tuesday night, be sure to take those things into account. But we think that there's going to be a rose ceremony during tonight's episode. Maybe the middle, maybe the end. Hard to say with kind of how weird everything's falling out. But there should be a rose ceremony. Worst case scenario would be some kind of cliffhanger. They go through all the dates and they end up right before the roses start coming out. We've seen that kind of thing before. With as many episodes as they've added, it wouldn't shock me, but I feel like with, especially how slow paced it's been, they have to hit a rose ceremony here to keep people interested, to keep people coming back. And you end it on some nonsensical cliffhanger, like adding more people after the rose ceremony. So that's the slant that my picks are going to take. We'll get to that in just a minute here. Pricing for tonight's episode is similar to Monday's episode. You got a set of people at the top: Genevieve, Serene, Aaron, Brandon, Jacob, all at 26. Jill and Shanae at 25. You're only going to be able to fit 3 of those people in. And what we've seen in previews and what we've seen so far in the season, you want 3 of those people. You could maybe make an argument for going 2 and then stacking at the low end. I would recommend getting your points. We've kind of seen where these edits are going. Brandon and Serene with a really beneficial edit for Monday's episode. I would not anticipate seeing as much out of them in this episode. They're going to focus more on these couples that are having issues or just getting going. They're very much in an advanced place, and the time they got in Monday's episode is probably it. You got this middle tier of pricing, and so everyone hasn't really shown us anything yet. Victoria, Johnny, Justin just hasn't scored a lot. He's been featured a lot, but hasn't scored a lot of points. You got Lace, James, kind of all in that middle tier. And you got this lower tier of people that include Sally, who still hasn't shown up, and Romeo, who has done absolutely nothing since pissing off literally everyone. And Andrew, who, kind of surprisingly has been quiet here. We know Brittany Galvin comes in. She gets a date. Doesn't go great, but that doesn't necessarily mean she won't score points. She won't be in my lineup, but we know she has a date, so she's going to have that time. If you wanted to go that direction, I couldn't fault you too much. Getting someone at that lower price point is going to be important for making the rest of the roster work. So for me, I'm going to go Jacob, Jill. Jacob and Jill are going to have things going on in this episode. We're going to get points for them coupling. We're going to get points for them naked in the ocean. We're going to get some drama points because Jacob also seems to play the field. We know Jacob and Jill don't end up together, but we know that Jacob does get a rose. So that pairing for me is the top of my board. And then I'm going to follow that one up with another $26 player, but we'll get to that at the end. I want to talk you through the rest of this lineup before we do that. Andrew at $9. Haven't seen a lot from Andrew, but we know he does get a rose. So he's my cheap play to kind of make all the rest of this fit. We know Bachelor Nation loves him. We know he's going to end up with a good edit. I don't know if it hits right here, but the floor of that rose is really what does it for me at that cheap price point. Johnny and Victoria have to get going here at some point. We know they end up together. We've seen just a tiny bit from them and a little bit in the preview footage for Tuesday's episode. Going to slot Johnny in. Again, it's a price play. It's only $13. You can fit him into this roster, and we know he gets a rose. The last play for me is Aaron, and this is where I'll give you a little wiggle room to pivot. If you do not think that there's a rose ceremony on Tuesday night's episode, go Genevieve instead of Aaron. What we're trying to capture with the two of them is any leftover drama, any of their budding romance. We know they both cuss a lot. So they're the same up until that point. The difference is Aaron could potentially get a rose. Genevieve has drama with Sally. We don't know the extent of that. We don't know if it's going to end up scoring a whole lot of points. But if you don't think there's a rose ceremony, take the Genevieve side of the couple, and it'll give you a little bit of a buffer against people who are stacking roses. If you do think there's a rose ceremony, Aaron's my play. Aaron should be your play over Genevieve. If you wanted to go a different direction at the top, obviously we know Brandon gets a rose. I just don't know how much additional screen time they're going to get. So Jacob, Jill, Andrew, Johnny, and Aaron for me. It's going to be a weird one. We really need this show to fall into some kind of normal cadence. If they keep doing things like bringing on old contestants that only the weird Bachelor Nation people like dial into instead of the people there for the reality show that we're actually watching, it's going to be impossible to track this. We lost an entire date and 23 minutes of footage last night to a couple that's not even competing on the show. So keep watching your previews, keep watching the flow of the episodes. Most importantly, we got to figure out where these rose ceremonies are going to fall. In 16 episodes, we're going to have some weirdness. Who knows? So some of the spoilers coming up are weird, and we'll see how those all play out. But at least for this week, fingers crossed that we get a rose ceremony. Fingers crossed that everything kind of flows normally and that the people that aren't there for the right reasons go home. But we'll see how that plays out. You can always find us here on YouTube. Like and subscribe. You can find us on the Rose League, which continues to be the best place to play daily fantasy, Bachelor, Bachelorette, and BIP, with live scoring and a pretty lively chat community during the episodes. So if you just happen upon the video but haven't played, check that out. And thanks for joining us. We really appreciate it. And I'll complain about this season, but we're having a lot of fun with it here at the house. And watching it side by side with Monday Night Football has kind of become a treat of sorts. So good luck to you tonight. Happy picking, and watch out for those crabs.